So picture this, a secret, multi-billion-dollar intelligence network, something built up over years to fuel a revolution, and it gets completely dismantled. Overnight. No shots fired, not a single bomb dropped. This is the story of a cyber attack that didn't just break a network, it basically rewrote the rules of modern warfare and pushed two superpowers right to the edge of a real physical conflict.
You've probably heard about the Starlink satellite network, right? I mean, it's considered a total game changer, famously keeping Ukraine online against all odds. It was seen as, well, pretty much untouchable. So the big question is, how did Iran, in just a matter of days, allegedly pull off something that other world powers couldn't even dream of trying?
And according to our source material, this is how one of the biggest intelligence operations of the 21st century happened, almost completely in the shadows, changing the entire balance of power in the Middle East, maybe forever.
Okay, so to really get how this all went down, we need to rewind a bit. You'll remember the massive protests that were sweeping across Iran. The regime's first move? Cut the internet. Just plunge the entire country into a communications blackout. But behind the scenes, another plan was already clicking into place.
What the source is telling us is that a huge covert operation was already happening. For over 2 years, intelligence agencies were allegedly building this ghost network inside Iran, smuggling in thousands of these little, unassuming satellite dishes. The goal? To give protesters a connection to the outside world that couldn't be censored. So when the government internet went dark, this ghost network suddenly lit up.
Now, for the Iranian regime, this was a massive existential threat. But instead of some clumsy brute force reaction, they reportedly launched a counter-operation that was just stunningly sophisticated.
Here's the alleged three-step masterstroke they pulled off. First, Iranian engineers cooked up a system to detect the unique electronic signature, the fingerprint, of every single Starlink terminal. The second one was turned on, boom, it lit up on their map. Next, with a database of over 10,000 targets, they launched a massive, coordinated sweep of simultaneous raids all across the country at 3 in the morning. And finally, and this is the crucial part, they didn't just grab the hardware, they started taking it apart to figure out how it worked.
And just think about the economics here for a second. According to the source, building this secret network over several years cost the CIA and Mossad an estimated $5 billion. I mean, that's a gigantic investment in tech and secret logistics.
And this is the new reality of cyber warfare. Iran's counter-operation, the one that took out that entire $5 billion network in just a few days, allegedly cost them only $70 million. The return on investment for the attackers was just staggering. It really proved that in this digital age, you don't have to be a superpower to have superpower-level capabilities.
But the story doesn't stop with a disabled network. Oh no, this victory wasn't just about defense. Iran allegedly turned this whole thing into a powerful offensive weapon, and the consequences started rippling across the globe and completely reshaped the power structure inside Tehran itself.
So the fallout was, well, it was immediate and it was everywhere. The source claims that the seized devices were actually reverse-engineered and turned into spy tools to use against the remaining users. The tech was then apparently shared with allies like Russia and China, basically handing them a playbook on how to counter Western satellite technology. And internally, a brand new, more powerful intelligence agency was born from this, and with it, a new figure rose up from the shadows.
And that figure is Mojtaba Khamenei, the supreme leader's own son. The source points to him as the mastermind behind this whole crackdown, the quiet connection between the Revolutionary Guard and the very top of the regime. This success allegedly cemented his power, making him, for all intents and purposes, the ruler from behind the scenes.
This cyber victory didn't just embolden the regime, it seriously raised the stakes for absolutely everyone. The conflict started to move from the digital world to something, well, something far more dangerous, with reports of technologies that could literally change the nature of war itself.
And as the tension ramped up, so did the claims. Now, it is really crucial that I point this out. What we're about to talk about next is an unverified report from the source material, but it's a huge part of understanding the story and just how unbelievably high the stakes had become.
The source alleges that Israel has developed a new kind of tactical nuclear weapon where artificial intelligence can precisely control the yield, the destructive power of the blast. So for a small building, you could program a 1-kiloton blast. For an airbase, you dial it up. The terrifying part of all this? The implication is that by making nuclear weapons seem more surgical, the huge psychological barrier to actually using one could just disappear.
And that brings us right up to the present moment. This hidden cyber war has now pretty much spilled out into the open, with both sides making very real, very public military moves for a conflict that feels more and more inevitable every single day.
And you can see two totally different strategies playing out. On one hand, the US is moving massive, conventional hardware into place, aircraft carrier groups, advanced missile defense systems, you name it. Iran, on the other hand, is leaning into its asymmetric strengths, threatening US bases in the region and showing off its missile and cyber capabilities.
And we're not talking about vague threats here. The source states that Iran has put the US and its allies on notice, explicitly naming major American military bases all across the Middle East as fair game if an attack happens. The message was crystal clear. The entire region was now on a knife's edge.
And just look at how quickly this is all escalating. A postponed strike becomes, well, not a canceled one. A carrier group is racing towards the coast, and new defensive systems are flicking on. The source material ends with a really chilling prediction that a major military confrontation could be just days away.
This quote from the source just perfectly captures the grim feeling of the moment. It's a very clear message that any conflict won't be contained and that the consequences are going to be shared by everybody.
So it all comes down to this, right? In an age of cyber weapons that can cripple a whole nation and alleged AI-guided bombs that promise surgical precision, does the idea of a limited war even exist anymore? Or, as these invisible battles keep escalating, has the fuse for a much larger, much more devastating conflict already been lit?